sometime in, I think, February or March, can't remember exactly, but toward the close of the legislative session, one of the, and really the only bad law that the General Assembly passed that affects those of us who are forced to register is an amendment to the Registry Act, which is 9.1-904, and deals with periodic registration. So it wasn't enough for the General Assembly to recognize and the State Patrol to execute the idea of periodic registration. If you are on the lowest tier, as I am, and as many of us are, the Tier 1 registry, which has us forced to register for 15 years, many of us for crimes, I think something like 50,000, for crimes we did not commit. Nevertheless, we've got to do that, and we have to do it periodically, which ended up being annually, or if you have no changes, or if you have many changes, within 3 days of things like change of job, change of residence, or change of email or phone number. Now, you could do the social media post changes, those you could do online, and you send it in, and you get a response back. And then you keep that response. That's how it goes. Well, that wasn't good enough because there was a little loophole in the law, and we were hopeful that we could get, as I said, Safer Virginia. At the time I had mentioned too, Safer Virginia, which is a NARSOL affiliate, National Association for Rational Sex Offense Laws, to support us in that. They declined to do it, didn't feel it was a big deal, but it really was, because what it did, in my view, is it made it that much easier to register, because one of the things that it does also allow is the State Patrol, who whined incessantly that they had to bring people off of patrol, off of the highways, to sit down and do one of these dumb little forms and to get your fingerprints or your thumbprints, and they just hated that, and we hated it too. So I suggested, why don't we all get together who hate it and try to get rid of it? Of course, this is big business for them, gives them a great deal of significance, and brings a lot of money into the Commonwealth. So they were not in favor of that. So somebody along the way in the State Patrol decided to petition the legislature, and since they have more pull than some of us on the registry, they were able to enact a provision that would allow them to develop a database somehow and do online registration. So we received this just yesterday. It's dated June 1st from the State Patrol. I'm going to read it here because it really is quite useless. It says, the 2025 General Assembly made significant changes to the Sex Offender Crimes Against Minors Registry, blah, blah, blah. Changes are effective July 1st and apply to Tier 1 and Tier 2 registrants, that is, those who have to, who have to register for 15 years versus Tier 2, which is 25. Okay, unless the specified subsection requires otherwise. And there's a couple of changes. For example, if you were under not computer violations, but a more severe code, then you have to register more often. And of course, if you fail to register, then it's every 6 months. But that's not the issue. That's not been changed. It says you are going to now have to register periodically. Okay, well, we knew that anyway. Persons required to register with, this is paragraph 3 now, with last names, beginning with A through L, shall verify the registration. Verify your registration information with the state police from the 1st to the 15th of such person's verification months. And then they have a table, and they say pursuant to 9.1-903, which is, again, dealing with the registry. Below is the re-registration table, which tells you how often you have to do it, which is pretty much what they had before. The only difference is if your last name is in the first part of the alphabet, you need to do it the first 15 days of the month versus the second 15 days. But that's it. It doesn't tell you how to do the registration, where to do the registration, what specific procedures you have to follow, and says, call this number if you have any questions. So, this is what they do that does nothing for anybody in particular. And it doesn't even explain how you verify your registration at all. It is totally useless. They do have a couple of inserts in here. One will give you all the nasty things they will do for you if you fail to register, and I've pointed this out before. Basically, everything with any correction, you have 3 days to do it. That's the quick summary of what you have to do on here. Okay. International travel, you have to let them know 21 days in advance. They do, however, have a scam alert, which we have asked for a very long time, which is, we have scammers constantly calling us, trying to get us to be fearful and give them money over the phone, and that they will do something to make it so that the law that we supposedly didn't know and violated inadvertently, they'll make nice and we will not have to go to jail. So just another way that our taxpayer dollars are being wasted by the registry, which does nothing to keep anybody safe. In another instance, we had a terrible situation with a young man who broke into, well, he walked into really because it wasn't locked, and forgotten about door apparently to a facility here in Northern Virginia that houses the elderly. And apparently he raped an elderly woman in her bed. Now, that's terrible enough. And of course, he was caught in the act, and staff detained him until law enforcement could get there. And we certainly hope and pray that the woman who was assaulted can find some peace and some closure. I don't know what to say when something like that happens, but I do know what to say about this part. The beginning of the article says that this young man, very first line, this man was on the sex offender registry in the year 2018 for a crime that he committed, which was to assault somebody in an adult sex shop here in Northern Virginia. And he had groped this woman. He had tried to lift her dress. He had tried to forcibly kiss her. And that put him as a tier 1 offender on there. Of course, now it's a second offense, so he'll be going to prison for that. And he'll probably have to register either as a tier 3, well, probably a tier 3, I would guess. I don't know what they'll charge him with, but that would be lifetime registration. But the point is that the article began its heading with, this was somebody on the registry. Now, why would you do that? First of all, besides stoking fear, the registry list right there admits that the registry did nothing to save this woman. In fact, if you really wanted to save the woman, you should have made sure that all the anterior doors to the facility were sufficiently closed and locked. That would be, 101. Okay? I understand staff are busy. I understand mistakes are made, but that would have made the difference. The registry made no difference at all. Putting somebody on a list did absolutely nothing. Okay? This person was on a list. He committed a crime. Registry list didn't help. Somebody who has never committed a crime, but subsequently committed a crime, they weren't on a list. And then there are a bunch of us who are on a list who didn't commit a crime at all. So, the list does nothing but give people a feel-good, warm and fuzzy feeling that they're doing something out there to curb so-called sexual violence and predation, but does absolutely nothing. And letters like this, you have to wonder, is the point to really be clear and give guidance as to what to do, or is it to create a situation where somebody is, again, eligible to be rearrested? You decide.